we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
It's a bad movie.
Oh, okay, we're gonna have an argument then. Alright, hey everybody, welcome to Argo. Fuck, Lincoln!
Argo, fuck yourself!
Welcome to the Lincoln Talk. We are reviewing Lincoln. I'm tired.
Really? I thought your name was Aaron.
What do you mean you're tired? It's fucking midnight over here. What are you talking about?
Wait, you're 19 in college. Shut up.
Alright. Okay.
I have such a headache right now.
Okay. Joining me today, this is part, once again, of our series of reviews of movies that are nominated for the Oscars. We also do reviews of other films that are not nominated for the Oscars, of just whatever is currently in theaters. You should check out our YouTube channel, which is new and has
Would you like to hear what I think of Holes? Holes
Okay,
is
first
pretty
off,
good.
if they didn't listen to our Silver Linings Playbook review, that just sounded dirty. But joining me...
Shia LaBeouf in Holes, what? That's nothing to about.
Joining me is
Isn't
Callum.
that his next movie, Shia LaBeouf
Jackson
in
is the one who won't stop talking. Then we also have Mike, and I'm Aaron, and Michelle's here.
Hello.
So, who here actually saw Lincoln?
I did.
I did.
Okay, so Jackson saw it, I saw it, and Mike saw it. Is that correct? Okay, yes.
All right.
Okay, we started off with Mike going ahead and telling his opinion. I have kind of responded with my opinion. So Jackson's the mystery. But here is what the movie is about. It's a film that looks a whole lot like a biopic. But it's not. This is actually just a look at the last few months of Abraham Lincoln's life in which he is trying to push the 18th Amendment, which frees
13th.
slaves...
13th.
Oh, what? 13th?
13th.
Sorry. I thought America was more racist than it actually was for a moment. The 13th Amendment through the House of Parliament, which would free the slaves, and that's basically it. It is not a movie about the life of Lincoln, although originally this script was like 5 hours long, so it might have been, but they thankfully cut it down, and it is just that. It is a look at Lincoln trying to get the 13th Amendment passed. So, let's begin. Daniel Day-Lewis is getting an Oscar, so we don't need to touch that. Moving on.
Yep.
Anybody not think that? Anybody think he doesn't deserve it?
I think he's really, really good, but I don't think he deserves Best Actor Oscar. I think he was really, really good, but he's not even the best person in the film. So
He is
really
the best
does.
part of that film.
it's.
Fuck, we're all in disagreement about everything.
No, I think Tommy Lee Jones is underused and criminally mistreated, but his character and performance is actually more interesting because Lincoln's character isn't able. They don't go into enough depth with him because they're being very biopic-like and kind of stepping a bit further back and not going into He's not making a stance. You can read Lincoln any way you want to. He's a blank slate for the historical purposes, whereas Tommy Lee Jones has some real meat on his character. And even though it's poorly done, I like that.
I don't know. I think that Lincoln, actually, you could tell a lot about him. I think that it was sort of, basically what they were trying to say is, paint him as was kind of like an old soul, really. It's that, the kind of guy who... I don't know, maybe this just comes from me growing up in the South a lot, and you see a lot of these guys, but, it's that guy who defuses situations and is an expert at defusing situations, and also often just uses really long stories to do that.
I'm just imagining, Lincoln defusing a bomb now.
You imagine weird shit in our podcast. But anyway. Yeah, so what the hell was I talking about?
Lincoln.
Lincoln, it's a film released in 2012, directed by Steven Spielberg, about the President of the United States. That's what you were talking
about.
Yes.
Civil War, slavery, go.
So what's everybody think about Steven Spielberg's directing?
It was good.
To me, anybody could have directed this, really.
Yeah, it was not his best work. I feel like this movie was a little too long for its own good. I think there were plenty, well, I shouldn't say plenty, but there were some parts where it just dragged, and I mean, granted, I went and saw this movie at 10:30 at night, so I was also kind of tired, so maybe that's part of my fault. But I felt like you could have removed a bit from this film, and it would have probably been a little better.
Something is wrong with me, because this year I saw so many 3-hour-long films, and none of them really felt like they dragged to me. Like, they all felt like they fit just fine there. And, Lincoln, yeah, it's about 3 hours long, and it felt fine to me, as far as the timing goes.
See, for me, it was the complete opposite way. That felt way too short. I mean, I wouldn't have liked to see it all in one go, but that should have been a miniseries. That was my biggest problem.
All over the place on this review. There's three of us.
Or it should have been shorter. Whether it was more tightly focused or gave more weight to everything that happened, that was a film lacking in focus, probably because it was so edited down. And I think, that was my biggest problem with it. I'm quite underwhelmed with Lincoln, if you can't tell.
Wow. So I'm gonna be on the defense on this one. I really enjoyed this film. This film gave me what? Jesus Christ! Why could we not have had? This is the only time you'll ever hear me saying this. Why couldn't Matt be on this episode? But yeah, because I need some backup on this. But to me, this gave me what I've been missing ever since The West Wing went off. Like, this to me gave me political day-to-day stuff, but in a very interesting and very charismatic way, like with colorful characters and really great dialogue, I thought. Lincoln, to me, yeah, I didn't really see like any flaws in him as a person. I didn't really see, if you want to criticize it for not being three-dimensional enough, I can understand, but to me, it was just like they were trying to paint him as the patron saint of this bill. Like, this was, he was the guy with all the answers and knew what to do and knew to stay cool and calm, which, during a civil war, that's the kind of guy you want to have in there. And I'm sure it wasn't entirely like that, but that is how he is pretty much painted in all of our history books. But I do love so many of the moments where he diffuses a situation, or, I love, the cleverness that went into, just seeing all of his little assistants running around and actually trying to get people to sign this bill. I love seeing stuff like that. And it's been so long since I've seen it done in a clever way that actually had me enjoying it. I laughed at several moments in this film that I was not expecting to.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. There were parts, there were several pretty amusing parts, and some of that day to day. I haven't seen The West Wing, but having been watching House of Cards, I imagine it's not nearly on the same scale. But
House of Cards is the evil West Wing. It's the same thing, but if everyone was just trying to fuck everyone else over, is what House of Cards is.
Right.
I just want to say, I've just started, because I've been watching all this other political stuff, I just started watching The West Wing. I'm 4 episodes in, and The West Wing is in such a different league to everything we're talking about now. Even to compare Lincoln to The West Wing, it's like, it's not there. It is nowhere near there. The level The West Wing got up to in 4 episodes kind of takes a giant dump all over Lincoln, which was a real shame.
Well, we also can't really compare TV shows and movies, but...
That's true. That is true.
Well, yeah, I mean, Lincoln, yeah, you would have to compare one episode of The West Wing with Lincoln.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, like I said, I really enjoy that. Like, I enjoy political intrigue. I enjoy political day-to-day stuff. And I haven't seen it done this well in so long. And, I mean, there's so many moments that just, to me, made Lincoln seem like such a charismatic figure, just with the way they handle situations. I mean, one of my favorite moments in here is where someone comes into his office and says, listen, I can't get them to sign this bill, and I'm not going to. I'm not going to hand this off to him. And he said, I understand. Give me your hand. And he starts shaking his hand, and then he takes the bill off his hand, hands it to someone else, and says, go hand this off to someone, and then won't let the other guy go so he can chase after him. It's very clever stuff like that. Like, that to me is incredibly well written. It's, in fact, I'm going to say it, this is one of my favorite scripts of the year.
That's odd, because most of my problems come down to
Oh, Jesus. Right.
I think what is there is actually well written and well done, but I ultimately think it's all a bit hollow because everything is stripped. Like that scene in the House of Representatives where the vote is being passed, and you're getting all these tense votes, and you don't know what's going to happen, except you do because spoilers, it's history. And
In America, that's still a spoiler.
yeah, and it's most of those votes were handled in a montage, and you don't really. These characters are kind of skimmed over, and this should be one of a great triumphant victory, or kind of bittersweet victory, because the actual main character journey is that of Tommy Lee Jones and his ability to compromise for the sake of some progress, which is that's the interesting part of the movie. Because I don't think it's all bad. It's not terrible. It's okay. I just was disappointed by it. And yeah, so you have this scene where all these people are making extremely important decisions, but you barely know any of them. And the direction and all the music is swelling as if freedom is having this giant victory. And it's all a bit hollow because you don't... Because clearly the scenes with them and all their motivations has been trimmed down to like a montage, and you barely know them. And that was my biggest problem with it. It just felt a bit empty and devoid of substance in favor of fitting everything in.
Well, I can understand that, but to me, all those various people, I didn't really view them as individual characters. I viewed them more as the collective mindset of the time, and just touching on different angles of that. It was more of that. It wasn't like every single one of them was their own character. It was more they were all forming one unified face to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of agree with Jackson here that a lot of the characters just come across as kind of hollow, and they're just kind of thrown in there. I think that there's too many characters. You're trying to, you can't care about all of them. You only care about really maybe a half dozen if you're lucky.
I'll even go you one further. I only cared about 2 characters in this film.
See, what are you talking about?
Because, like I said, to me, this is about the actual, more of like the actual event, and more of like the face of the nation at the time, and just the mindset of the people.
Right. I think that had this been, more strictly regarding the, him trying to get, the 13th Amendment passed, but then they throw in all these other things that, they throw in, the stuff with the Civil War, which I guess you kind of have to.
The stuff with the what?
It just kind of, the Civil War.
Oh.
But it just kind of felt like a distraction to what the main plot is. And then, his relationships with, his wife and his sons, it just kind of felt like they kind of try to bring like these big important things with, the relationship between him and his wife, and it just kind of falls apart. You visit him a couple of times, and it's just kind of left there. And it's like one of their last big, conversations, arguments. You find out something kind of really important about Mary Lincoln, and it just kind of, bloop, just dropped off.
Yeah, I definitely would have liked to have seen a little bit more Mary Lincoln Todd. And as far as the son goes, yeah, I feel like Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character was just there to kind of serve as, like, saying, hey, people are going to war at this time. But once again, to me, I kind of saw this more as, like, not about people, but more as, like, events. More of just sort of about, like, what it was like to be around. Not what it was like to be around this time as in, like, making me actually feel that, but more of, like, here's the attitude that was going around that time. This is, all the things that you would have to take in mind. And, seeing him going off to war, that's one of those things like, yeah, that to me was kind of like the ticking time bomb element. That to me was the, hey, we gotta get this passed even sooner, so JGL doesn't die.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't, to me it wasn't like saying, hey, now we have to be worried about Joseph Gordon-Levitt and whether or not he'll die. To me, it was more of like, now the stakes are higher even more. Like, here's another thing to add to the stakes.
Yeah, I guess, but it just kind of felt like...
But I think it was more that you're not invested in any single stake. So if any one piece... If Joseph Gordon-Levitt dies, you're like, oh, well. I guess there's 11 daughters Gordon died. Like Lincoln's relationship with his youngest son, which Spielberg tries very deliberately to play into towards the end of the film. In a
I didn't like that. I'm on that one.
Obviously there's a trickery that's beside the point, and it's a bit theatrical and dumb. But the actual core of that moment of focusing on the son would have worked if we were invested in that relationship at all. The problem is every single relationship is conveyed in 2 scenes because there are about 50,000 relationships in the movie, and you can't really get in to any of them. It's a portrait of a time with no real hook, concerned with being historical, so it forgets to be a film where you care about the most important, I don't know about enough about American history, but one of the most important bills ever passed.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah, well, once again, like with the son, like that to me wasn't really trying to say, oh, and here's the relationship between the son. That was more, they're playing into that while the votes are being taken. So to me, that was more like saying, well, who is this man Lincoln? What would he do during this big event? He would go and play with his son. That's the kind of guy he is. Like that to me was more of just saying, here's the kind of guy Lincoln is, rather than like trying to say, and here's another element into the story.
Wait, which bit do you think I was talking about?
Oh, I thought you were talking about when the bills were being taken and he was like interacting with his son there. What's the moment that you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the bit in the theater that's not the theater, and you're that was dumb.
The movie should not have ended at that.
The movie should have just ended when the bill was
passed.
Yeah,
because once again, this is not about Lincoln's life. This is,
And if it is about his assassination, then you put that in early. You don't just say, and then he's assassinated because that's what happens.
I did not like that ending. I didn't like that they chose to do that.
Wait, but was that his son, though, in the other theater? I thought that was the son of some other general or somebody in his cabinet.
No, that was his son.
That's his son.
Was it? Oh, okay. It looked like a different kid. I don't know.
Exactly, because you didn't see him. Yes, exactly. You proved my point.
Or you prove my point that you guys clearly just weren't paying attention to this movie. And
hey, Aaron, no.
I don't know. I will say this though. I feel like that Lincoln's portrayal, Daniel Day-Lewis's portrayal of Lincoln, I felt that it was good. I felt like you got the sense of a very complicated man, but yet a very lonely man. Because, I mean, going off of our previous review, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Lincoln suffered from depression, especially during his adult life. And I kind of feel like you got glimpses of him, being the humorous guy, being the kind of a very intense moment with him and his wife, which is not something that I think, whether it's true or not, I feel like it's something that plays that, people remember him as this very, tall, stout, honorable man, who was doing the right thing, and you kind of realize, hey, he's a very complicated, broken individual, and I felt like I would have been more interested in seeing a Lincoln biopic taking it with that route.
Yeah, I'll throw out there something else that I didn't like about the film. I'll go ahead and say this. You mentioned the big swelling music before, Jackson. This movie does that too much. I mean, it gets to a point in which they're almost doing it to where it's like a parody of this kind of movie
They
would do.
throw their tall hats in the air singing freedom. How is that not a parody?
Well, no, that's the kind of stuff they did back then. That's the kind of thing that grown men did back then.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the whole thing in the house where they're singing. I'm like, that would never happen today. Ever.
Yeah, not today.
I'm sorry. Now I'm imagining a finale in which everybody throws their hats and starts singing "Freedom" by Wham.
Oh, you mean that, or a moment where Lincoln just comes up and goes, "Hey, everybody, we're all gonna get freed! Hey!"
That just sounded like a Family Guy sketch.
A bad one.
Don't get. There's others.
So, do you know Tommy Lee Jones is the only character that goes on a real journey in this movie and has an arc?
I don't really think he has an arc, because to me, he's pretty much there the entire... Yeah. He is set the entire way, but he decides to join up.
Yeah, but his arc is it's learning to compromise. Where do you draw the line?
I can see that.
It's the closest thing that the movie has to someone being at one point and having to make a decision. And his character was wasted with a dumb twist. Like, not saying the twist itself was dumb, but why wasn't that just part of his character? Why did we not just explore that from the beginning rather than saving it for a aha moment? I think it robs its ability to it, again, sacrifices your ability to get to know characters and to connect with them for the sake of a weird kind of cinematic twist, which I felt was like more just. Huh.
Man,
Yeah,
we need Kevin here. I know that's one of his favorite moments. So Kevin, I'm sorry if I'm not defending this appropriately, but to me, once again, I didn't really view this as being a thing about characters. To me, this was a thing about the event and more of just a face of the nation kind of thing. So that reveal to me is more of just saying, hey, back then there were such progressive people, and it was more of like a, hey guys, it was more of like a sign of hope that they threw in there at the end of, this is the start of things changing for the better.
Right. I will agree with Aaron on that.
Yeah, it sounds to me like at the end of the day, our biggest disputes on this come down to, I saw this more as just a film about this process and the face of the nation, and you guys saw this as a character piece. And, as a character piece, not a character piece, because that means it's studying just one character, but a film about characters. And, yeah, I can totally see how it being a film about characters just would fail. But, I don't know why, but for some reason, I never once really saw it like that.
Right. I think had it been a little more broad with the characters and was more focused on the bill and the acts of trying to get the bill and, not having all these distractions surrounding it, all these, subplots trying to tie things in which really have no payoff whatsoever, I think it would have been a better film overall as a story-driven event, major event in American history. Instead, I think it tries to juggle the characters and the story, and it just winds up, kind of just being okay.
I've got a weird hypothetical for you guys. If they had taken out,
I love these.
Yeah, if they had taken out the end if they had just ended it at the 13th Amendment being passed, kept everything else the same except for, just ended it there at the 13th Amendment and not called it Lincoln, but instead called it the 13th Amendment. How would that have changed anything?
Yeah, I'd have thought it was worse, because I'd be like, why are they wasting their time talking about Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
Alright, fair enough.
That's the problem. It can't decide whether it wants to be about that or whether it wants to be about all this, and tries to do too much and falls down. But it's not terrible, it's just... yeah.
It's no War Horse. Let's at least all agree on that. It was not War Horse. Alright. So what do you guys give it then?
I'd give it a B.
I'd give it a C.
I will give it an A-. So, alright. See, I was able to come in brokerage this little civil war at the end. I'm like the Lincoln of the Pupcast. By which I mean Mike is going to kill me at one point. So,
wait, what? Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. Mike's not the one who will kill me. It's the one I never see coming.
I guess she sat right next to you.
Matt.
He was looking at me.
That was a visual gag that doesn't work on podcast. Alright.
This settles the fate for all coming time. Not only of the millions now in bondage, but of unborn millions to come. Shall we stop this bleeding?